The Wind and the Demon. The place must have been beautiful once. The country manors still had gabled roofs and expansive lawns which were decorated with fanciful stone figures. If one looked closely, it was easy to imagine the splendor it must have radiated in its prime. Time was unstoppable, though, and as the years had passed, the manor and its grounds had all fallen to ruin. Now the windows of the place stared like blind, broken eyes, and tree roots burst through the foundation, making the floors crack and buckle as nature sought to devour the structure that had once thought itself the lord of the land. Paint peeled from the wood in long strips like rotting skin, and the red X that marked a house of plague could still be seen over the drunk-hung door if one squinted their eyes in the moonlight. The man who sat cross-legged in the broken courtyard was much like the house in whose shadow he rested. His simple robes were old and stained, the cuffs and hem frayed from time and wear alike. His long hair was ragged as well, and streaked with gray in places. His nails were thick and yellowed, almost like claws, and his hands were unevenly calloused. Heavy stubble dusted his cheeks, but despite the years and the deep lines, one could see the ghost of the young man he'd once been. He was motionless, his palms turned upward on his knees, his eyes wide and unblinking as he stared into the heart of the fire that kept the night at bay. A wind blew through the courtyard, moaning through the broken house and making the fire shudder. Shadows danced along the tumble-down walls and grew from the cracks between the stones. Those shadows lengthened, rising like smoke until they took on form and shape. The darkness parted at the crown of each shadow, revealing pale, white, motionless faces. As the last rose to its feet, the wind died. If the man sitting before the fire noticed them, he paid the dozens of figures in black no mind. One of the shadowy figures stepped forward, his feet making no noise on the gravel and stones, until he stood across the fire from the sitting figure.
"You are Coran Dorn,"
the figure whispered, the lips of its death mask unmoving. As soft as the words were, the seated man had no trouble hearing them. The servants of the hungry wind were never heard when they didn't wish to be, and always heard when they did. "I will say this once, and only once," the man said, taking a deep breath and closing his eyes. "Leave me in peace. Whatever they paid you, it isn't enough for this."
"You have powerful enemies,"
the creature in the death mask whispered. "That is so," the man said. "But they are not here, and I am. Make your choice." For a moment, all was still in that broken courtyard. Then the wind whispered once again, and the shadows converged. Steel glimmered in their hands, and they moved with the speed and ferocity of a silent storm of death, all of them intent on their victim. As fast as the assassins moved, though, Coran Dorn moved faster. He danced like a flickering tongue of flame, there one moment and gone the next. He ducked beneath the swipe of a sickle sharp enough it whistled as it cut the air, and twisted out of the path of a dagger aimed at his throat. He slid away from a chain that whispered a bare inch past his face, and leaped back from a blow that tore the front of his robes, but didn't so much as brush his skin. When one of the shadows brought down their sword in a powerful overhand blow, the man didn't dodge. Instead, he stepped inside the swordsman's swing, grabbed his wrist with one hand, and slammed his other hand up into the elbow. The limbs snapped with a hollow crunch, and a second blow to the assassin's chest knocked the crippled figure to the ground. Breath wheezed through his mask, but it sounded wet, as if something inside him had ruptured. The man turned his gaze to the rest of the shadows. Red motes flickered in his eyes as if they were full of cinders, and he shrugged off his robe, baring himself to the waist. Brands seamed his shoulders, chest, and arms, the symbols twisting and painful to gaze upon. From the center of his back stared the red-eyed visage of a fiend, every ridged horn and snarling fang inked in intimate detail across his skin. As his muscles flexed and shifted, it made the demon look almost alive, the open mouth gnashing its teeth, or perhaps growling as it demanded a sacrifice of blood and pain. He raised his hands, now curled into claws, and bared his teeth at those who had come to slay him. Those teeth that seemed sharper now than they had a few moments ago. I would have settled for peace, Coran Dorn, the man who had once been known as the Demon of Daituma, the first among the brothers and sisters of the Hellbenders, snarled. But mercy is costlier than peace. The assassins of the Hungry Wind were still. Though none of them moved a muscle, a soft, whispering breeze passed between them. The assassin who still held a gleaming sickle in one hand tilted its head slightly, regarding the man they'd been sent to kill.
What is your price?
The assassin asked. The demon's smile grew even wider. The fire in his eyes flared, and smoke trickled from between his teeth. The scent of brimstone wafted on the air, and a low growl rumbled deep in his chest. It sounded like a hellhound giving a warning to a damned soul who looked ready to run.
Give me a name,
Coran Dorn growled, his voice reverberating as something else joined it in chorus.
Do that, and you may leave. Do it not, and you will learn why your employer was not brave enough to come and face me themselves.
Thank you for staying to the end of this story. The Wind and the Demon is the introductory vignette from the Tabletop RPG supplement 100 Monastic Orders. If you enjoyed this story, then please like, subscribe, and share it around on your own social media pages. And if you want to support us, then please grab a copy of the supplement at the link in the description below, and check out our Ko-fi and Patreon links as well.